On day 108 of the war, something extraordinary happened. A document was signed electronically by Donald Trump, by J.D. Vance, by Iran's parliamentary speaker, the same man who weeks earlier had threatened to annihilate American infrastructure and activate new fronts. The same man, the same war, a signature. And within hours, 3 completely different victory speeches. In France, at a G7 summit in a town called Evian, yes, like the water, Trump declared the war effectively over. Let the oil flow. The Strait of Hormuz will be open by Friday. Iran has agreed to never build a nuclear weapon. In Tehran, Iranian military commanders told state media, and I want you to really hear this, that humiliated American and Zionist enemies have no option but to accept defeat and surrender. And in Jerusalem, a former general and opposition leader named Benny Gantz called it flatly, grimly, a diplomatic failure for Israel. 3 parties, 1 document. 3 completely contradictory interpretations of what just happened.
Let's start with what we actually know. Not what was claimed, not what was spun. What happened? On day 108 of the US-Israel war with Iran, a Memorandum of Understanding was signed electronically. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance signed on the American side. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the same man who has been simultaneously leading negotiations and threatening war throughout this conflict, signed on the Iranian side. The document is a framework. It establishes a 60-day ceasefire extension during which negotiations toward a final peace agreement will take place. Trump, speaking at the G7 summit in France, said the Strait of Hormuz would be open by Friday. He posted on social media that many ships loaded with oil are starting to move out of the strait. Oil prices dropped to a 3-month low. Global markets opened sharply higher. Those are the concrete things that happened. Now here's what we don't know. And the list is remarkably long for a document that's being treated as a historic breakthrough. Neither side has published the actual text of the deal. The precise terms on nuclear enrichment remain unspecified. The timeline for sanctions relief, something Iran is treating as imminent and the US is treating as conditional, is unclear. The terms around Iran's frozen oil revenues, reportedly in the tens of billions of dollars, are disputed. Even the question of whether ships will pay tolls, fees, or travel freely through the strait, a question that was supposed to be one of the core issues of this entire conflict, remains, in the words of journalists who were on the briefing calls, murky. One senior Western diplomatic correspondent put it simply after a briefing call with US officials: "We still don't know that much, really. We've had broad brushstrokes. We don't have the detail." Day 108, a signed document, and the people whose job is to cover this story don't yet know what it says. Let's talk about the Strait, because the Strait is, in many ways, the clearest, most concrete piece of this deal. And even here, the picture is more complicated than open by Friday suggests. Start with the mines. Iran mined the Strait during the conflict, not metaphorically, actual naval mines deployed in one of the world's most heavily trafficked waterways. Before full commercial shipping can resume, those mines need to be found, mapped, and neutralized. Minesweeping is not a weekend project. It requires specialized vessels, careful, methodical work, significant coordination, and even under ideal circumstances, it takes weeks, possibly months. There are, according to reports, approximately 800 vessels stranded, waiting for the strait to reopen, thousands of sailors aboard them, in limbo. Oil tankers, container ships, gas carriers, cargo vessels from dozens of countries. They've been waiting in some cases for weeks already. Trump says, open by Friday. The physical reality of the mines, the logistics of sweeping them, the coordination required between the US Navy, Iranian forces, Omani maritime authorities, and international shipping companies, that reality operates on a different timeline than a Truth Social post. Then there's the toll question. This, more than almost anything else in the deal, reveals the gap between the American and Iranian interpretations of what was agreed. The American position, stated clearly, stated repeatedly throughout the negotiations, was that the strait must be free. No tolls, no fees, no service charges. Open to all, permanently, unconditionally toll-free. Trump specifically mentioned this in his public remarks, and it's been one of Washington's non-negotiables from day one. Iran's position, as articulated after the signing, is slightly different. Not tolls, Iranian officials say, but some form of service fee for shipping passing through. A distinction that might sound semantic,
but is in fact the difference between two completely different legal and diplomatic frameworks for who controls the strait. One New York Times report suggested a compromise of sorts, no tolls for a 60-day period, mirroring the ceasefire timeline, after which a regional dialogue would determine how the strait is ultimately governed. 60 days of no tolls, and then to be determined.
Now, let's get into the most extraordinary part of this entire story. The part that, in a historical sense, will probably define how this moment is remembered. On the day a peace framework was signed, every major party read it as a win. Simultaneously, incompatibly, the American read. Trump says Iran has agreed conceptually to never develop a nuclear weapon. The strait will be toll-free. The blockade on Iranian ports will lift. The war, which he says the US won militarily very early on, is ending on American terms. J.D. Vance may attend a signing ceremony in Europe. The Middle East is being reshaped. The oil flows. The Iranian read. Iran's top military command issued a statement describing humiliated American and Zionist enemies who have no option but to accept defeat and surrender. Iranian officials claimed the U.S. has recognized Iranian and Omani sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Some sources close to the Revolutionary Guards claim the U.S. agreed to $300 billion for reconstruction of Iran. The president called it an honorable agreement. 90% of Iran's Supreme National Security Council voted for it. The Israeli read. Bluntly put, a total disaster. Israel went into this war with two clear objectives: the collapse of the Iranian regime and the end of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Neither happened. The Iranian regime is, if anything, stronger than before. Hezbollah still exists. Israel wasn't included in the negotiations. Israel won't be included in the 60 days of talks. Far-right Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said Israel should reject the ceasefire entirely. Opposition figure Benny Gantz called it a diplomatic failure. Prime Minister Netanyahu, preparing to speak, is facing, as one correspondent put it, a lot of pressure tonight. And the analysts read, this is not a peace deal. It is at best an agreement to try to have a peace deal. Former General Mark Kimmett's framing, a down payment on further negotiations, holds. The hard parts haven't started yet. Experienced diplomats say 60 days is nowhere near enough time. And one of the most unsettling observations from BBC's chief international correspondent,
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, was assassinated on the first day of this war. He had a fatwa declaring that Iran should not develop a nuclear weapon. He is gone, and his fatwa may be gone with him. This is the detail that deserves far more attention than it's getting. For years, through sanctions, through negotiations, through the 2015 nuclear deal and its collapse, through the Trump administration's maximum pressure campaign, one of the stabilizing forces in the global debate about Iran's nuclear ambitions was a specific religious ruling, a fatwa issued by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, declaring that Iran must not develop nuclear weapons, that the pursuit of a nuclear bomb was, in his theological interpretation, haram, forbidden. This wasn't just a political statement. In the framework of Iran's theocratic government, where the supreme leader's religious authority is constitutionally supreme, this was a binding ruling. It provided, however imperfectly, however skeptically Western intelligence agencies viewed it, a theological floor below which Iran's nuclear program, in theory, could not go. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed on the first day of this war. His son, Mujtaba Khamenei, has reportedly assumed the role of supreme leader, but the transition has been fast, contested in some quarters, and entirely without the theological consolidation that comes from years of established authority. And the fatwa? A fatwa belongs to the scholar who issued it. A new leader is not automatically bound by his predecessor's rulings. He may choose to affirm them, he may choose to revisit them, he may simply say nothing, leaving the question open-ended, unresolved, deliberately ambiguous.
And underneath all of that, the question that may, in the long run, matter most of all: has this war actually made the world safer? Has it moved the dial on Iran's nuclear ambitions in a durable way? Or has it, as the critics increasingly argue, spent billions, burned through relationships, empowered hardliners on every side, and ultimately arrived at a framework that is, at best, no better than what patient diplomacy might have achieved without a single shot fired. If this series has helped you understand one of the most consequential conflicts of our time, subscribe, share it with someone who needs the context, and let us know in the comments, what do you think the 60 days will actually produce? Day 109 tomorrow. See you then.